Mr. Brandon Beach, who is running for State Senate District 21. I'm Trenton Adams, and welcome to the Cherokee County Republican Party candidate interviews. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your campaign to participate in this interview process. We've extended this invitation to all candidates in this race and sourced questions from the CCRP membership. We have found that it has been an asset for voters in making their decision. The video will appear on the Cherokee County GOP website and will be shared on social media. The interview will be shown unedited in its entirety. For the interview, we will ask you a number of questions but can offer no prompting. There are no right or wrong answers, only your answers. And we ask each candidate the same questions. If this is all right with you, I'll have everyone introduce themselves and then I'll ask John to begin asking the questions.
Okay.
John Longshore.
Larry Rosinski.
Larry.
Harry Abrams.
Harry Abrams.
The state budget is essentially a line item proposal. Why is it not noted on each line item what the corresponding obligated expenditure is for?
Well, we do zero-based budgeting, so we do that. I mean, we look at every department in its entirety. So I would tell you that we do look at that. We look at each line, and we look at the budget very, very closely, especially on transportation. We've got a 10-year strategic plan, and we're watching every dollar where it's going. So I think we do look at the budget very closely.
What is the role of a state senator?
Well, the role of the state senator, first off, this is your seat. It's the people's seat. It's not my seat. I go down there and I represent you, and I'm very fortunate that I get to do that. And what I need to do is represent what I think is best for Cherokee County. And my first role is to make sure that I'm doing what's best for District 21, and then I want to do what's best for the state. But my first and my main obligation is to take care of District 21, and I go down there and represent District 21 and make sure that I'm doing what's best for the citizens of this area. But I mean, I think it's very plain and simple. What is the best for the citizens? Good education, good quality of life, and so on.
Why do you want to be a state senator?
Well, I will tell you, I moved here 24 years ago, and I moved from New Orleans, and we had to leave New Orleans because there were not any economic opportunities. I remember my junior year at LSU, Shell Oil Company left New Orleans. That's where I grew up. Took thousands of jobs, and then it was a snowball effect. More jobs left. And it was because the elected officials and the leadership didn't take care. They didn't reinvest the lottery money in education. So when you peel the onion back, consequently, you had the worst schools in the country, which led to a higher crime rate than usual, crumbling infrastructure. So then it wasn't about recruiting new companies. We couldn't even retain companies. So when Chantel and I got married, we had to make a choice, go to Dallas or to Atlanta. And Atlanta was booming, and so was Dallas, but we chose Atlanta. And it was, besides our two children, it's the best decision we've ever made, was coming to Georgia and being in this state. And I love New Orleans and love my culture, but I decided I was going to get involved in the community, not so much politics, but just be involved in the community, so that we could make sure that if Courtney, who's my daughter, she's 27, and my son 24, who graduates in 8 days, May 7th, he graduates from North Georgia. If they wanted to go and, if they came to me and said, Dad, I want to live in Washington, D.C., I want to live in New York City, I'd support them 110%. But if they come to me and say, Dad, I want to come back to Cherokee County, I want to come back to North Fulton, but there's no job opportunities, well then shame on me, and really shame on all of us. So that's why I got involved in the community. And let me tell you, I worked in the community before I was ever elected to anything. I was chairman of a bond initiative. I served on the planning commission, which is a volunteer job. Then I was elected to city council. But I served at least 6 years before I was elected. And I really don't believe you need to have a title to serve. You can serve the community. And I just want this community to be better for our kids than we found it. And I want them to be able to come back here, find a job, and raise a family. And I'll end with this. This may sound a little corny, but I would love to see Courtney and Hunter, when they do have children, I'd love as a grandparent to go to the same baseball fields where Hunter played and the same swim pool where Courtney swam, and see our grandkids participate in that. And that would be kind of cool for us. Now, our kids aren't even thinking about getting married, so we're not really worried about grandkids yet. But I would just say that. That's why I became involved in the community. Take the senator away from it. I mean, I just have progressed up, but I do love serving because I think it's important to have public servants that want to make sure we take care of our our community.
What constitutes a bad Georgia Senate bill?
You know, I think that one of the great things about the Senate, and I would tell you this, and really in the General Assembly, if you will, it is hard to pass motherhood and apple pie, and it should be hard. And so there's a lot of ideas that come and are discussed, and there's nothing wrong with discussing an item, and it'll get vetted pretty quickly through the committee process, and if it's not good for the citizens of the state of Georgia, then it won't go forward. But there's a lot of ideas that have been out there that are, you know, people say, wow, these are kind of crazy ideas. But, you know, when you're elected, you have the right to go to legal counsel and come up with an idea, and as long as it meets statute and code and you can come up with an idea, I would just say that, you know, I think that we have such a process to where you would introduce a bill, then it gets assigned to a committee, then it goes to a subcommittee, then back to committee, then to Rules Committee, then to the floor of the Senate. Then if it passes, then it goes to the House and goes through that same process. Well, there's a lot of eyes looking at that piece of legislation before it gets final approval and gets signed by the governor. So I would just say that I think we have a pretty good process of really vetting every idea that's brought up in the General Assembly.
While social issues take up a lot of energy, what are the issues taking the largest budget focus?
Well, education is 52% of our budget. Then you really have four areas that are our budget: education, the courts and criminal justice, healthcare, and then transportation. Those, you don't have a lot left when you really tackle those issues. But education is the biggest one, and I think that we need to invest in our education. I was proud to work with Jan Jones, the Speaker Pro Tem, to secure $25 million to build a new technical college in my district in North Fulton, because we didn't have a technical college. Cherokee did with Chattahoochee Tech, and I've seen the benefits of technical education. And I'll be honest, I didn't really believe in technical education 10 years ago, because I thought all our kids in Cherokee and North Fulton, they go to college. They're not going to use technical colleges, but they do. And now with Move On When Ready and dual enrollment, we've got a great opportunity where kids can graduate from high school and also have an associate's degree from a technical college and be certified in some really high demand, career demand jobs. You know, one of the things we're finding, we did a study on workforce development. We are short in cybersecurity jobs. We're short in computer coders and computer engineering, there's certain jobs, and healthcare, nursing, and so on. So we've got to be training these people. I will tell you this about the technical college system. I want you to think about this. If you have an unfortunate to have a heart attack right now, before you see a doctor, you're going to see at least 5 people that have a technical college degree. The EMS, the person that's going to check your blood pressure, put your IV in, all of that. Before the doctor even sees you, you're going to see somebody that probably went to a technical college. Then the last thing about the technical colleges, and while I will always invest in education, we're in a fast-moving society. We have a lot of people in there from 38 to 45 that have to go back and get retrained in a different skill because the jobs are changing in such a rapid pace. So I think that's technical education, good K through 12 education, and good college higher education. And the good news is I see all of them working together now. 10 years ago, the high schools didn't talk to the technical colleges didn't talk to the colleges. Great example of that is the technical college system and the higher education system, the Board of Regents, are working together for the Georgia Film Academy to make sure we can place people in these jobs for the movie industry. Because what happened was when we first came out with that tax credit, for example, we had people come here and they'd film the movies, but then they'd go back and do all the post-production in California, and they would do all the editing there. Now they've put roots down here. They've built studios. They've built all the back room stuff that's needed to do what I call a movie from cradle to grave, which is good for us because we're not just getting the tax credit for the movie. We're getting real jobs and people living here, shopping here, and dining here, and so on.
Do you agree with term limits?
I think the voters are smart enough to decide when it's time for you to leave. And as I said earlier, this isn't my seat. This wasn't Chip Rogers' seat. This isn't anybody's seat. It's the people's seat. And I think every 2 years, I have to ask you to rehire me. And that's just something that's part of the, it's part of the political, and it's really our American way. And so if I do a good job, I may be unopposed. If I do a good job, I'll re-win if I do have opposition. And I think I have done a good job and put the Cherokee citizens first.
Should Georgia House and Senate representatives be beholden to non-disclosure statements that pay out a settlement for misconduct while the legislature is in session?
Can I ask you to read that question one more time? I know you've
Sure, not a problem. Should Georgia House and Senate representatives be beholden to non-disclosure statements that pay out a settlement for misconduct while the legislature is in session?
Yes.
The legislature is noted for rushing bills to the floor each year. It is also noted for changing bill content prior to last-minute voting. Similarly, local officials are known for submitting proposed requests for legislative changes at the last minute during the legislative session. What is your comments?
It is very fast-paced the last 10 days, and you have to pay attention. The first few weeks are very ceremonial because the bills are being dropped, and then they got to go through the committee process like I explained. And then you start getting into the committee process, and then you start getting to rules, and then they start coming to the Senate floor. And that's when you really have the debate at the committee level and on the floor. And then what happens is a lot of times they go to the House and they make changes to it, and then there's agrees and disagrees. And so it's fast paced on those last few days. I mean, that's why we go till midnight or beyond some nights because of those changes. You just have to read the bills. We do have a rule that it has to sit on your desk for 2 hours before we vote on it. So you have time to look at it and look at the changes, and they're underlined. So you know where the changes have been made. So it's just our responsibility to read our bills and make the tough decisions.
There are many subgroups whose financials are hidden and no breakdown is noted. Examples are Marble Hill, Brasstown Valley and Spa, and GoFish. Would you consider it a priority to get full disclosure on these items and others?
Yes, we should have transparency and full disclosure on every government property or entity that's owned by the people.
Are you supportive of widening Georgia Highway 140?
Yes, and we are going to do that. And I've talked to Chairman Buzz Aarons about making sure on any future zoning decisions that they make sure they keep the right-of-way that's already there available in their zoning decisions. We already have in our plan to widen the bridge at right past Arnold Mill that's going into North Fulton. That bridge right there was built in 1952, and it needs to be replaced and it needs to be widened. So we're going to replace it and widen it, and then we want to widen all the way from 575 through Roswell to Mansell Road, because it doesn't make sense not to widen it all the way to Mansell Road. You've got to have the 4-lane capacity all the way to Mansell. And I've been working with that's not my district, but I know the mayor of Roswell, and I've told him it's imperative that we do that. And we, both GDOT board members, Mark Burkhalter from the 6th district and Jeff Lewis from the 11th district, are working closely on 140. We have to widen 140 for a couple reasons. One, we've got more construction going on, and then two, with the new hospital, I think from an emergency vehicle standpoint, we need to be able to get people to that hospital. So we need to do that, and it's in the plan. I will say Highway 20 is going to happen first. Highway 20 is already, the engineering's done, and it's going forward. Thank you.
Would you vote on a bill you haven't personally read?
No, I read all my bills, and so no, I would not do that at all. We vote, when I vote, I've read the bill. And we have interns and we study, and we have, let me just tell you, when you're down in session, it's a full-time job, and so we read all the bills.
Would you note your personal involvement with the content of a bill you submit prior to submission?
Read the question again.
Would you note your personal involvement with the content of a bill you submit prior to submission?
My personal, well, I mean, the bills that I have done, I have no personal gain in anything. I don't know if that's what you're asking, but there's no personal gain from my part. I mean, SB 346 this year it was reducing regulation on transportation. I don't gain anything by that except that I'm a citizen and I will gain by saving tax dollars. But yes, I mean, there's no personal gain in any of my bills.
Do you believe that states have the right to nullify unconstitutional federal laws?
Yes, I do. I think they should be able to. And, you know, that's what we were trying to do a little bit with the religious freedom, with the same-sex marriage and making sure that the pastors were protected and we had some protection for people that, you know, wanted to live their faith.
Over the past few years, some of our elected representatives have passed laws that promote replacing conventional fossil fuels with alternative, green energy sources. As a state senator, would you have the prerequisite scientific and engineering knowledge to consider voting for these types of laws?
Well, I mean, I think that technology is going to be such that it's not really going to need legislation. I mean, when you look at Tesla, for example, they're selling more and more of those electric cars, and now there's technology where they're going to be able to go in, change a battery within 8 minutes, and go another 300 miles. And they're going to have these stations all over. The other thing is, I don't know if you're aware of this, Georgia Tech has come up with a product that mixes in the asphalt, and when an electric car drives over it, it's automatically recharging from the sunlight during the day. It recharges the electric battery. So from a technology standpoint, I think we're going to see changes. We see changes in our cell phone, our watches, you know, and that take your pulse and do all of the stuff they do. I just think technology is going to drive change from the fossil fuel industry. Are gasoline cars going away? No, but I do think there will be innovative things that are happening, both at the electric cars and also getting better gas mileage on the fossil fuel cars. So I think innovation is what's going to drive, the market's going to drive it more than politics.
Do you believe it's better for the government to mandate the conversion to alternate energy sources, or to allow alternate energy to compete in a free market environment without government mandates or subsidies?
I think sometime, and we did this on the electric cars, we gave a tax credit to encourage it. Then we've taken it away, and it helped jumpstart it. But I think they need to stand on their own, and I don't believe in government helping them on a long-term basis. And a short-term basis, that's okay to get the industry moving if it's innovative technology. But on the long term, then I like the free market. And I think what's happened now, again, Tesla's come out with a car that's not $100,000. They've got a car that's going to be able to compete with the SUVs at $35,000. So people will start buying the electric car if they see the savings.
13 American states do not tax military retirement. With military retirees finding it increasingly difficult to acquire medical assistance efficiently and in a timely manner, most are using their fixed retirement to pay service-related medical procedures, etc., and spending less locally for goods and services. Would you introduce legislation to exempt military retirement pay?
Yes. Let me tell you something. I did not serve in the military, and my dad did. And anybody that has served our country deserves a pat on the back and deserves our help, and we should help any veterans on that kind of situation. And so I would be all for that.
Are federal gun control laws constitutional?
Well, I believe state law should drive states' rights on the Second Amendment. You know, I've got an NRA rating of an A. I just got the endorsement from Georgia Carry and the NRA. So, yeah, I think it's a state issue, and we should be able to control that.
What does the 10th Amendment mean to you?
You got me on that one. I'm stumped.
Do you believe that the 17th Amendment is a good or bad thing?
I think it's a
Or
good
what?
thing.
Okay.
Are there any conditions under which you would advocate either raising existing taxes or implementing new taxes?
No, I want to cut taxes. I want to make sure that we can, let me say this, business does not drive jobs. I mean, business does drive jobs. Government doesn't drive jobs. Government does not create jobs. Business does. But what government can do is create a conducive environment from tax policy and regulation to make sure that we can continue to grow jobs. And we've done a good job of that in Georgia. You know, for 3 years running, we're the #1 state to do business. We've grown from the 11th most populated state to the 8th, and we will soon be the 7th largest state in the country. And so, you know, I'm proud of that. And I do think that that's what drives the economy is good tax policy, less regulation. So I'm not for new taxes. Since I've been in the Senate, I have voted for 14 different tax cuts. One example, we cut taxes on energy manufacturing. Well, that has created, Baxter's come here, Caterpillar's come here, creating thousands of jobs, of high-paying jobs.
Are you currently a member of the Cherokee County Republican Party?
Yes.
We would like our elected Republican leaders to help us grow the party. Please briefly describe any significant efforts you have made in the past to support Republican Party and/or Republican candidates locally, statewide, or nationally.
Well, I mean, ever since I've been involved, we have, whether it's from city council or now the state senate, we are always trying to recruit young people to get involved and get them involved as whether an appointed position and then go into an elected position. So I've worked on that a lot. I mean, when you look at the Alpharetta City Council, I helped a few of those guys get their start and get them involved, and they started on the planning commission and then moved up into the city council. Same with a lady named Liz Hausman, started at the school board in Johns Creek City Council. Now she's our county commissioner. And I don't want to say I groomed her, but she was groomed by leadership, and I was part of that leadership.
Have you ever been arrested or convicted of a crime excluding traffic offenses?
No.
And have you ever been the subject of professional discipline or cited for breach of ethics or unprofessional conduct by any disciplinary committee, court, administrative agency, or other professional group?
No.
Thank you very much for doing the interview with us, and if there's anything else you'd like to say to our viewers.
Well, I would just like to close with this, that, you know, on May 24th, the voters are going to hire one of us to be their state senator. And I think the choice is very, very clear. I've been in this community I've lived here 24 years, and I've been involved for 20 years in public service. I have the experience, and I'm effective. My opponent has no experience, and he's a little bit naive. I've been in this community for, like I said, 20 years. My opponent moved here recently from Chicago within the year. I have voted in every election since I've lived here in the state of Georgia. He's voted in one election, state primary election, in the last 10 years. And I've got results. I've secured $9 million for the road in between 20 and 140. That's going to have a $500 million hospital investment, and it's going to create over 1,000+ jobs. I think it'll even be more than that. My opponent has a company in Hong Kong and is interested in creating jobs in China. So I think those are the differences. When you look at that, I think it's real simple. A track record of results versus rhetoric that has produced no results. And so I would ask the voters of the 21st District to vote for me and support me in the upcoming Republican primary May 24th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.